available to governments, businesses and people. Monies lent with the pending plague of interest attached. The US government had spent more money than it had earned through taxation. The government then turned to the Federal Reserve to obtain money required to run the country. In this agreement, the government instructed the Treasury Department to print US interest-bearing bonds. From the bonds obtained from the US government, the Federal Reserve has created more and more credit, which it in turn loaned to businesses and individuals inclusive of pre-accumulated interest, establishing an ideal system whereby the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The Federal Reserve in the US serves as a line of credit when the government is in debt. The US debt currently stands at $400 billion, which incurs $20 billion in interest per annum. Interest generated from nothing. Such power, reserved for those who control the money systems, is riddled with conspiracy and greed. Money manipulation by this one body shows how the influence and control of a few can affect the majority. Company plans, political prospects, rise and fall of certain industry, boom and depression, all controlled by the few. All controlled by money. The first Federal Reserve Board members were handpicked by Colonel Edward Mandell House, who represented British and American banking interest. Edward House in 1912 wrote a supposed fiction novel entitled Philip Drew, Administrator. The novel tells how a small group of insiders created a depression, then bring about the election of a hand-picked leader who launches a program called New Era. The insiders weaken the country to the point of civil war, which provides the excuse for the implementation of dictatorship policies. People desperately looking for a way out accept with open arms their new oppressor. This story seems very likening to actual US historical events. Edward House selected Woodrow Wilson as a presidential candidate, and when Woodrow Wilson became nominated, he later became his financial advisor. Woodrow depended on him exclusively. He even admitted that House was his alter ego. The link between money and politics and ultimately the day-to-day lives of people is inseparable. In this complex chain, the simple conclusion is clear. He who controls the money controls the people. A global system influences the people who rise to power. Only those that support the ultimate interest of the big money dynasties will be selected. They in turn select judges, administrators, ambassadors in a complex web that ultimately serves one master. The popular saying, "two sides of the same coin," is just what summarizes this system. Political parties change, governments change, but this global system remains intact. And it begs the question, what group then sits at the head of this international table? In 1870, John Ruskin, an Oxford lecturer, taught to a group of his students that the state must take control of a country's production headed by one man, a man who was superior to all others. And amongst his students was none other than Cecil Rhodes, the ruthless racist dictator, who imposed his surname on what is now Zimbabwe. Cecil Rhodes, through his international banking contacts, amassed riches from creating a diamond and gold monopoly in Africa. In 1891, Cecil Rhodes established a secret society to promote the darker side of John Ruskin's dreams. Dr. Quidley explains.
In this secret society, Rhodes was to be leader. Stead, Brett, Lord Esher, and Milner were to form an executive committee. Arthur Lord Balfour, Sir Harry Johnston, Lord Rothschild, Albert Lord Grey, and others were listed as potential members of a circle of initiates, while there was to be an outer circle known as the Association of Helpers, later organized by Milner as the Round Table Organization.
After the death of Cecil Rhodes, the leadership of this inner circle fell into the hands of Lord Alfred Milner, High Commissioner of South Africa. As director of numerous public banks and corporate precursor of England's Midland Bank, he became one of the greatest financial and political powers in the world. He recruited many Oxford graduates into his inner circle. Dr. Quidley explains.
Through his influence, these men were able to win influential posts in government and international finance, and became the dominant influence in British imperial and foreign affairs up to 1939. Under Milner in South Africa, they were known as Milner's Kindergarten until 1910. In 1909 to 1913, they organized semi-secret groups known as Round Table groups in the chief British dependencies and in the United States.
The Round Table preempted a secondary group in the United States called the CFR, the Council for Foreign Relations. It is through such organizations, universities and tax-exempt groups that the global capitalist conspiracy has dominated and kept a grip on the world for over 50 years. The CFR was a front for financial giants such as J.P. Morgan, who ran it with the small but elusive American Round Table Group. The CFR has an elite membership of 1,400. They are sworn to secrecy, and the organization as a whole keeps a very low profile. One of the members, Joseph Kraft, in an article, Schools for Statesmen, published in Harper's Magazine 1958, stated one of the chief architects was Colonel Mandell House. He also stated that members of the CFR included the chairman of Atomic Industry, head of the CIA, members of the largest Wall Street giants, university lecturers, journalists from CBS, NBC, Newsweek, Times Magazine, Washington Post, directors from the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Endowment Fund, Presidents Hoover, Johnson, and Nixon. From media to presidents, the CFR has a very intimidating membership of some of the world's most powerful individuals for an organization the public knows next to nothing about. The question, so often asked, must once be asked again. What is the CFR? You can change the name, but the reality remains the same. Lodge, secret society, international bankers, Illuminati, it all equals one thing: control of public opinion and the elimination of religion. As intelligent as a person is, everything that is known is from the world around. By controlling the source of knowledge, i.e. universities, magazines, television, radio, music, etc., it is possible to fashion an organic robot which bows to the commands of its master. Some people believe that conspiracy is non-existent, and others believe everything is a conspiracy.